Housewife Show, starring me, Mrs. Drury. Today's sponsor is Sugar Mite, the only sugar that has the vitamins to support your busy family. Today, we're going to be making cinnamon sugar swirl donuts. Doesn't that sound scrumptious? Don't forget to take out your yeast cakes and get ready to make some dough. Hey, wasn't that a blast from the past? Well, just like today's video says, I'm going to be recreating a 1950 cinnamon twist, which is a simplified yeast spread recipe. As I said, the recipe is from 1950s. There is a few things that are a little different about the recipe, some of the verbiage and how the recipe is created. Simplified recipe means that it'll take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to fully complete this recipe from start to finish. So let's go ahead and get started. All my ingredients are laid out. I will have my recipe and all the previous recipes on Patreon for free for those who are interested in this recipe, with pictures, I might add, from the cookbook itself. So we're gonna head over to the stove where I have a cup of sour cream that we have to heat to lukewarm. Let's head over there now. So in my saucepan, I have a cup of sour cream. Usually when I cook with sour cream and I'm cooking, such as making casseroles and such, I'll use light sour cream. But because this is a baked good and you'll need the fat from the sour cream to incorporate with other ingredients, I've used a full fat sour cream. Now, we're supposed to heat this to lukewarm. Then we're gonna remove it from the heat and add our sugar, with our salts, and baking soda. So let's heat this up now and just kind of wait to see what happens. I'm actually gonna stir it because it is a fat ingredient. Fats tend to burn on the stove. It's just like if you were to scald milk on the stove, you would watch it to prevent it from fully simmering and bubbling. That way it prevents it from burning into your pan, basically preventing your fat from breaking down too much before it has a chance to be used in the recipe. I have this sitting at about a 2. Everyone's stove is going to be different, how you would have the temperature. I am working on gas. Electric may take a little longer to heat up and fully come to temperature. That also being said, because I'm working with gas on a cast iron stovetop, this is going to retain heat after I turn it off. So remember, when you're working with gas or something with a copper bottom or cast iron, residual heat is going to remain. You can see that it's starting to become a little bit liquidy on the bottom. It smells like I'm heating up cream cheese. So I'm starting to get little bubbles on the edge, and I can see that the fat is starting to break down in here. I'm going to call this good for lukewarm. I'm going to take my sugar and salt and baking soda and just pour it in. Basically, we're making sure that the gritty noise when stirring has disappeared. Next, it says to crumble in 1 cake compressed yeast. And that's not always popular in some areas. So basically, a substitution for that, for yeast, is just 1 package. You use 1 package of yeast for up to 4 cups of flour. And since our recipe only needs 3 cups of flour, I'm only using 1 package of yeast. It says stir until dissolved. Oh, that was bad. That was bad. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour this into my flour now before I make an even bigger mess. Trying to get all the yeast and stuff. Actually, I'm gonna take my fork, scrape off my spatula. Because the yeast is basically what's going to cause these donuts to rise. And that is why the recipe said to heat up your sour cream. That way it would give the yeast a chance to wake up and say, hey, I'm awake, I'll I'll do my job now. So that's what we want to do with that. Next, we'll want to add, so we got the flour in here. We got, the recipe says soft shortening. I chose to use soft butter and 1 egg, 1 large egg. Put that in there. I'm just gonna stir this up. I'm trying to squish the butter through the fork, kind of like with a pastry cutter you might do that, and just kind of push my batter together. The recipe also says, if needed, use your hands, and I'm actually going to do that now. And everyone's going to need their dough a little different. Basically, I'm trying to push and pull the dough that's in the ball into the flour and basically expose the wet dough by squeezing it through my hand and trying to turn the dough and push it into the flour to use up all the flour. And just a reminder that if it's raining out when you make these, that the humidity level can play a factor on how much flour is absorbed. When it's more humid where you are when making this, you're gonna need more flour. And if it's drier, like higher elevations, sometimes you need less. When it's snowing, sometimes you'll use less just because of how the moisture is absorbed into snow, which is weird. I know, trust me. Okay, as you can see, I now have a nice ball of dough. Now, we need to roll it out. So before I roll it out, I'm gonna take my flour and use the hand I was not kneading the dough with. Reach it into my flour and sprinkle it on the counter. And I'm just actually gonna put a little bit in a scoop and set it off to the side. Next, I'm gonna take the flour, put it in my hand, like so. And that way, I'm just gonna roll it onto my rolling pin. Okay, on to rolling. So we need to roll this into 24 by 6. Let's start. Sometimes making it wider helps. So what you can do is you can always fold it over if you need to. To kind of make it longer. Okay, kind of have to laugh. It doesn't want to go back together. Oh, yeah, it doesn't. Okay, well, that's interesting. Usually when you refold doughs, it goes back together. So, let's just go from here. Let's see how long this is. This is a clean plastic ruler. Let's see. There's 12. That's 24. So I'm gonna fold that back up there. It's supposed to be 6 inches across. That is 12. Well, that ain't gonna work. I want enough dough there. Let's see if we can't make this a little more square. Okay. Fold it in a little. Fold it in a little this way too. Maybe we'll fold that down. Try and get ourselves a nice square here. What do I got here? 12. Need another 2 inches. So roll that side out a little more. See how it looks from there. 12. the sides are longer than the middle. Cross. We got 9. You know what? I'm gonna roll with it. It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but it'll taste good in the end. So now, we put butter on 1/2, followed by brown sugar cinnamon mixture, and then we fold it over, cut it, and make our twist. And this is 2 tablespoons of softened butter. And I'm actually just using the back of a spoon to kind of press that butter and spread it around. And I'm just gonna not make a mess. We'll save this flour. I'll show you what we'll do with that in a second. We'll take this and kind of sprinkle. I know it might look like I was stingy with it at first, but I want to make sure that at least there was some brown sugar and cinnamon going all the way down the length of this first. And then now I'm going back through and kind of filling in spots that could use more. Now we're supposed to take this and fold it over like so. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm taking a knife and I'm gonna take the flour that I had pushed aside and I'm just gonna put it on there, sprinkle it on. The reason I'm gonna do that is so the dough doesn't stick to the knife, giving me weird cuts. Just be careful not to cut yourself. So now it says we're supposed to cut these into 1-inch wide strips. So I'm just gonna actually go down and mark the inch increment. And I'm going to cut this in half. The reason I'm going to do that is to make it so much easier on myself. Because honestly, I hate when stuff is hard. There's a bunch of other stuff in the world that's hard. Now let's get to twisting. So to twist these, so take them. It doesn't say how many. It just says hold strip at both ends and twist in opposite directions. From the looks of it, it looks like they twist it twice. They set it down and push the ends into the pan. So we'll do it again. We'll take it. It says to twist in opposite directions. And it says how many inches apart? It says 2 inches apart on your cookie sheet, because they will puff up. Is that 2 inches? Yeah, that's perfectly 2 inches. Ah, score. And then you're gonna do this and repeat until all of them are twisted. So I'll do the mundane, boring thing, and you can time skip. Ta-da! Aren't these things so pretty? What you can do is take them and put a tea towel over them, put them on a cookie rack, and put a bowl of hot water underneath to help that water rise up and have the steam help puff them up. Otherwise, just throw on some saran wrap, put a tea towel over it, and let them sit in a draft-free place for an hour. And that's what I'm gonna do now. And then we'll start baking them. And I'll show you the frosting. They're calling it a frosting, but it's actually a glaze. And we'll put that on while they're still warm. So it's been about an hour, and I'm going to open these up. And look how pretty these look. I'd say they're just about ready to bake. What do you think? So now that these are ready to go, we need to set the oven at 375. Now that our oven is preheated, we're going to take these, put them in, and they are to cook for about 12 to 15 minutes. Again, I'm going to start cooking them on the lower end, and then from there we'll keep adding time slowly and steadily until they're done. But in the meantime, we're going to start some glaze. So for the glaze, I have 1 cup of sifted, and that basically means there's no lumps, of powdered sugar. I have a teaspoon of homemade bourbon vanilla, and I have 2 tablespoons of milk. And basically I'm gonna dump this in here and whisk until it's mixed. If you want your glaze to be thicker after all this is incorporated, add more powdered sugar. If you want it to be thinner, add more milk. If you want to have something completely different for flavor, you could always add in lemon juice and a little bit of lemon zest into it to give it that sweet flavor. You can also do that with candied orange peels. You can throw that in here and substitute orange juice for the milk to give an orange flavor. Really, the possibilities are endless for whatever you want to do. I'm just trying to make sure there's no lumps in here. And from here, what I'm going to do is, instead of just drizzling this glaze over top, I'm actually going to use this brush to brush on the glaze once they come out. Now that the glaze is done, all we have to do is wait on the donut. So it's been about halfway through the cooking time. I'm just gonna check on them and rotate my pan so they cook evenly and get golden brown on all equal sides of the pan. They remind me of the smell that when you would go to the mall and you walk by Cinnabon salad bar, just that air that would just waft into your face that was pumped out through the restaurant. It smells really good. So our first timer went off. Oh, those are totally done. You can see that they're nice golden brown in color, and then we'll set them up there and let them cool so they're slightly warm. So by golden brown, I mean this color right here. It's nice golden color. You can hear how solid that bread is. So we'll give these about 5 minutes to cool, and then we'll move them over to a rack and start drizzling. So as you can see, I've moved our beautiful cinnamon twists to the counter so they get more airflow to them. When you are pulling them off the cookie sheet, the butter and the sugar and the cinnamon is gonna give you like a sticky, almost like a caramel sauce. So just be aware when you pull it off, you're gonna have some strings attached to it, but not like in a bad way. Take this, dip it in there, and just brush it on. I may have to move to a spoon anyways. I was hoping not to and just like brush this on and make it look pretty. I don't think that's gonna happen. Okay, now I can take this and just basically the reason you want to do this while it's warm is because it'll still continue to heat up and drizzle everywhere onto the treat. And so I don't bore you, I will finish drizzling these. We'll come back and try them out. Just look at how shiny and beautiful these turned out. They are absolutely gorgeous. So you can see they got a nice shine to them. The glaze is dripping off. They smell delicious. And now I'm going to eat one. I got me a handy dandy paper towel. And what better way to eat a cinnamon twist than with a cup of coffee? Granted, it's decaf, but it's still a cup of coffee. Now let's try one of these out. We'll go with this one. It smells really good. It smells sweet. It smells like a cinnamon roll. Mm. I don't think I want to share. They are, because the filling is made with brown sugar rather than granulated sugar, they're not overly sweet like some cinnamon rolls can be. The glaze just adds a little bit of extra contrast flavor. I really do feel like I'm eating a cinnamon roll stick. It is so good. Would I make these for breakfast? Yes, but you better have a glass of orange juice to cancel out all this sugar. So, like I said at the beginning, this is a 1950s recipe. These are super good. They're actually, honestly, just as time consuming as cinnamon rolls would be. I think it actually takes less time because you're doing all the work, letting it rise and then bake and glaze. But you could honestly make these on a Sunday and like package them up, maybe 2 sticks, 3 sticks, and then take them to work with you and throw them in the microwave as your breakfast at work. Or even take them and throw them in the microwave for about 5, maybe 6 seconds in the morning and let your kid have this. Especially if the kids don't like eating breakfast, at least it gives them something to start their day. These would also actually be really good with a glass of milk. But anyways, I'm Sister. Yeah.
At 29 and I find myself wondering